Hi, I hope you're well today. We're going to be looking at Matthew chapter 10 and verses 1 through to 25. And this is looking at the calling and sending of the disciples. And obviously at the beginning, it names the 12 disciples, but it's really about how Jesus calls them and where he sends them. So I think a few things that stand out to me. In verse 1, it says, when he called them, he gave them authority. And I think that's really important for us, that as Jesus calls us, he equips us with everything that we need to fulfill the calling that he gives us. And so he gave them authority over unclean spirits to cast them out and to heal every disease and every affliction. And so he was giving them authority to continue these works of the kingdom that we've already seen so far in the book of Matthew. And so he calls them out and then sends them out. And I think it's, again, interesting that he says in verse 5, go. And he says, go nowhere. So he says, don't go to this place. But then he says, but go rather to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. And as you go, saying the kingdom of heaven is at hand. And so there's these three things, go, go, go. And we have to realize that the call of God is to go. It's not to sit, it's not to remain, but it's to go. Even if you think about the Great Commission, he says, go into all the world. And so the call of the disciple of Christ is to go. Now, in this time, he tells them to go to the house of Israel. He says, don't go to the Gentiles. Later on, he tells them to go to the Gentiles, to go to all the nations of the world. So when we're hearing the call, we are thinking about who do we go to? But also how do we go? So when he calls them to go to the Gentiles, to the house of Israel, he calls them to say, don't take your bag, just go, trusting that you'll find somewhere that the way will be provided for you. But later on, when he sends them to go, he says, take your extra coat, take your tunic, all those things. And so when he sends us, he'll send us in different ways. And I think particularly at this point, he was teaching his disciples how to trust the Father when they go, to be the provider, to make the way, because often when we go, we trust in ourselves, but he was showing them from the outset that when you go, you can trust God to make a way. You can trust, it says, the Holy Spirit will give you the words when you need them, when you're before authorities, when you're in trouble. The Holy Spirit will make a way. He'll give you the words to say. So in this sense, in their equipping and their training, they were being equipped to trust God. And so again, we need to learn that lesson, that as we go, we're not trusting in ourselves, our own merits, our own wisdom, our own gifting, but we're trusting him that he will make a way, he'll provide and give us everything we need. And then he says as well, persecution will come. There's going to be difficulty. He's sending you out as sheep in the midst of wolves. And again, realizing as you go, not everyone is going to receive you. Not everyone is going to accept you. There will be difficulty. And again, we have to accept that as part of our calling. We go not just because it's easy, not just because it's nice, but because he's called us, and there will be difficulty. And we embrace that. But again, it says, when you face that, you move on to the next place. Not everyone will receive, but there will be some. As I said yesterday, that the harvest is ripe, it's ready. And not everyone will receive it, but there are people out there who want to hear this good news. And so we have to be faithful in the going. We have to be faithful in the proclamation that the kingdom of heaven is at hand, that God is here. And we need to move in the authority he has given us to demonstrate that through signs and wonders. So I want to encourage you that the calling on your life as a disciple of Jesus is to go. Now listen to him. Where do you want me to go? How do you want me to go? But go and proclaim the good news that he has.